Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing? I need to address something very, very quickly. There is somebody called, well, they've got a very long name, but I can see that their first bit of their name is Roy, who is claiming to be the first on the stream. I can tell you, you're not the first on the stream. You were the first when we went live, but at 4:44 a.m., Gary Muirhead was in the chat right there. There we are. At 5:59, Dan Cullen was here. Not sure if he's going to make it onto the show today. So you were the first on Instagram, I'll grant you that, sir, but you were not the first. Who else do we have here? Uh, Paul Latham. Haven't seen Paul for a while. Morning, Paul. How are you doing, my friend? Hope you're fit and well. Gary Muirhead is here officially this time, not early hours of the morning during his much-needed pee break. Mark Whiting is here as well. Ken Hatcher, the Sprocket Man himself is here as well. And Chris Ford is here. Morning all. The weather here has been glorious all week. A bit of dust suppression last night. Hope it lasts. It is very, very nice out there. Having said that, I mean, I put a jumper on this morning and I'm regretting it already because it is really quite warm out there. I have multiple. I've only got one rant, if I'm being completely honest, but I do have something that I do need to address, which I'll get to in just a moment after Chris Ford. Chris Ford says, 4:40 a.m. I'm normally turning the bike round, sod chatting. Yeah, it's I don't blame you. I listen. It always amazes me. I turn on the computer. It's like, blimey, somebody's been here already. What on earth are they thinking? But I appreciate the thought anyway. Things are not looking good. I know I normally start the show with, all without further ado and everything, but I do think it's worth stopping and pausing a moment just with the latest statistics. So I've written something down for you, which it's not my morning monologue. That'll be later, which is a bit ranty, but I want to show you this because I think it's worth knowing. So, the UK construction industry is facing its worst downturn in years, with new figures showing a sharp drop in activity and a surge in company insolvencies. The latest construction PMI report reveals that construction output fell at its fastest rate since May 2020. Now, for clarity, the PMI report uses a scoring system to define the state of the industry. Anything above 50 is growth, anything below 50 is a decline. And in February, the PMI score plummeted to 44.6. House building has been hit the hardest, falling for the fifth consecutive month, with borrowing costs and weak demand driving the worst slump since 2009 outside of the pandemic. Civil engineering is also in free fall, while commercial construction has shown some resilience. That is also struggling. Now, not surprisingly, these issues are taking a serious toll on jobs. For the second month in a row, companies have been shedding workers, with subcontractor usage falling at its fastest rate since 2020. Input costs, including wages, raw materials, and energy, are rising, putting even more pressure on struggling firms. But the crisis doesn't stop there. New data from the Insolvency Service reveals a worrying increase in construction company failures. In December 2024 alone, construction firms accounted for 16.3% of all business insolvencies in England and Wales, with 291 companies shutting down. Over the course of 2024, a total of 4,032 construction businesses went under, 8.1% fewer than in 2023, but a staggering 25.3% higher than pre-pandemic levels in 2019. The construction sector has now recorded the highest number of insolvencies of any industry in the UK. In Scotland, 14.7% of all company failures in January 2025 were in construction. The worst hit businesses? Specialist subcontractors, including demolition, site preparation, electrical, plumbing, and finishing trades like painting and plastering, have been disproportionately affected, struggling with contract delays, cash flow problems, and declining order books. Experts warn that things could get worse before they get better. A recent analysis by EY Parthenon found that over half of all FTSE-listed construction companies in the UK issued a profit warning in 2024. Now, before I came on here this morning, I took a very quick look at the websites of both Construction Inquirer and Construction Index. And let me be clear, I have enormous respect for both titles and for their respective editorial teams. However, the lead story on Construction Inquirer when I looked was the awarding of a £21 million house building project in Tower Hamlets in London. Meanwhile, the lead story on Construction Index was about Mace getting the green light on the redevelopment of the Great Hall at London's Imperial College. This morning, I've had an invitation to the Construction News Awards, and I've been offered a copy of the building magazine Good Employer Guide for 2025. It's like the Earth is about to be hit by an asteroid that's big enough to destroy all of civilization, and they're reporting on the weekend weather. I genuinely do not understand it. It is. Listen, we talk about this every single day. It's bad out there, but it is so bad. So bad. Ken Hatcher says, "Looking sad out there." It's beyond sad. It really is beyond sad. I mean, some of those statistics, 14.7% of all company failures in Scotland in January, construction. Construction sector has now recorded the highest number of insolvencies of any industry in the UK. Gary Muirhead says, "It doesn't help the government changing the stamp duty." No, it doesn't. I mean, that will certainly have hit the house building sector. And let's not forget, I mean, it's times like this I wish Neil Edwards was still around, or certainly still at the Builders Conference. In the 4 odd years that Neil was a part of this show on a monthly basis, you will recall that house building accounted for roughly half, saying roughly half, somewhere between a third and a half of all UK construction activity. It was basically propping up the sector. We've taken away that prop, you know, obviously, as Gary has rightly said there, the removal of stamp duty, but also the rising costs of energy and materials and everything else. So the very thing that was keeping the industry afloat, we've kicked it in the knackers. That's what's happened. Yeah, I like Neil. Yeah, I do owe him a phone call, actually. I've been trying desperately to get him back on the show, just for a catch up, really. But I'll keep badgering away on that. Now, we've got lots and lots to get through here today, including my bit about International Women's Day, which is not really about International Women's Day. Ken Hatcher says, "Where has he gone?" He basically left Builders Conference. Builders Conference was bought out. He did a year with the new management, and then he left. I'm not absolutely sure where he is now. I did speak to him uh, just after Christmas, I think it was. Yeah, sometime in January, and we promised we'd meet up, and he had a bad back and couldn't. So we'll get back to it, and I will keep you posted on that. Garvin says, over on Mostly Diggers on Instagram, "In general, I think construction and civils is just a glacier, slow pyramid scheme." Yeah, I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. But the point with those insolvencies, and I think it's a point worth noting, 4,032 construction companies went under in 2024. I have seen nothing whatsoever that suggests that 2025 will be better. If anything, all of the evidence at the moment is suggesting that it will be worse. And let's not forget, there is currently a lunatic loose in the White House who is causing jitters across the global economy. That's not good. Just as a small aside, before I actually press the button and start the show, if you really want to understand what a Trump presidency looks like, go over to YouTube and search for a comedian called John Mulaney, American comedian called John Mulaney, who is, in my opinion, one of the funniest men on the planet. And he refers to the Trump presidency as, it's like there's a horse loose in a hospital. Go and have a look. It's very, very good. And Dan Cullen has just joined us in time for me to, get the show on the road and then to go over into the Mystery Machine, which I'm sure is exactly why he's here. So without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show underway. And you see, this is why I love the audience here, because they ask all the right questions. Gary Muirhead says, "Will this news delay the switch from electric and hydrogen change?" Yeah, I'm sure it will. if you're struggling to make ends meet at the moment, do you really want to pay 1.7, 1.8 times as much for your next mini excavator? You probably don't. Do you really want to commit to a scheme that requires you to invest in specialist charging or refueling infrastructure? No, you probably don't. You probably don't. So yes, I'm sure it is going to have a knock-on effect. It's going to have a knock-on effect on those kind of things, but it's also going to have a knock-on effect on things like training and on recruitment, health and safety. Let's be absolutely honest. We do work in an industry that has a tendency to cut corners when times are hard. That's not good. It really isn't. Communism and socialism doesn't work. Philanthropy works as the wealth reflects the help people get. Politicians need to think like philanthropists. I'll be honest with you. I'm at the point now where I'm starting to think maybe politicians should just think. I'm I'm almost at the point where I don't care what they think like. Just think, would you? You know, listen. I know I've made my stance on Mr. Trump very, very clear. But imposing tariffs and then telling the American people this is good for us because your car's now going to be $12,000 more expensive than it was last week, and half of America is going, absolutely, Donald, you go get them. You tell them what it's all about. We live in a lunatic asylum. It is Friday, the 7th of March. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition and the Lord of Live Streaming. In today's show, C&D and the power of collaboration. Thiess Mining celebrates a 20-year milestone. Caterpillar sends out an SOS, sort of. Bomag comes to a controlled stop. Plus, in my morning monologue today, we're going to be discussing the hypocrisy of International Women's Day in the demolition and construction sector. But before we get to all of that, we do have the small matter of today's mystery machine, which I shall show you immediately after this. Now, I'll tell you in advance, first and foremost, I've done nothing to this. It's not a common machine. It's not something you see every day, but I've done nothing. I've not changed the color. I've not made it look weird or anything like that. So the machine you're about to see is as it stands. However, I would remind you, this is the end of the first full week of March, and so far we've had 4 rounds, and I've won all of them. Nobody has put a dent in the mystery machine so far this month, apart from me. So you'll need to break out your magnifying glass. Have a look at this. There you are. That's a bit of machine. I am looking for a make and a model. A make and a model on that. Just making sure that I did post the question of the day. Let me just very quickly remind you of exactly what our question of the day is. Yeah, Gary's question was actually a bit long for that, so I'll tell you exactly what it was. Gary's come up with, our resident quizmaster has come up with the question of the day, and it is this: have you ever lost something? I don't know, your keys, your mobile phone, and then found them in a strange place? I've got 2 for you. I once came back from the supermarket, helped put all the groceries into the fridge and cupboards and everything else, sat down, couldn't find my phone anywhere. So, you do that sudden panic. Have I left it at the supermarket? Have I left it in the car? Hunted high and low. In the end, got Fred to give it a call and followed the sound of the ringtone. There was my phone. Where else would you put it? The bread bin. Yes, I'd filed it away in the bread bin. The next one doesn't strictly follow the question, but it does involve finding something in a strange place. And this happened quite recently, so I'm quite embarrassed about this. I was out on a job that required an overnight stay in a hotel. Woke up a bit late, packed in a hurry, did a full day on site, and my jeans were quite uncomfortable. And they got more uncomfortable as the day went on. But, being the professional that I am, I soldiered on, finished a full day on site, stopped off on my way home to get a bite to eat. It's only when I went to bed that night I discovered yesterday's boxer shorts stuffed down the left leg of my jeans. I'd done an entire day with some spare Grundies in my jeans. Our mostly diggers, Garvin, just said, not sure if it's part of your news, but I think I saw Fiat, that's Bomag, are acquiring Mechalak. You did. We actually announced that Monday or Tuesday, but it is true. It's a coming together of the French are uniting. I said at the time, just to reiterate it, I said at the time, I think it's a good thing. I think the investment, Fire is a massive, massive company. All I hope is that they don't knock the craziness out of Mechalak. I love the fact that Mechalak do Mechalak things. I'd hate for them to have to fall into line and start making stuff like other people. But that was my take on it at the time. It remains my take on it today. Ken Hatcher has never lost anything or found it anywhere weird. And I didn't make the question of the day, the mystery machine hard enough today. I can only assume he's used Google Lens or something like this, because Dan Cullen has already identified that as an SDLG LG 956. You're near enough. You're near enough. There we are. There is the machine. It's actually the 936, but I'm not going to quibble. Dan Cullen says, "What have they done? Why have they done that, Mechalak?" I'm assuming. Well, I'm assuming money would be involved. I'm sure that is precisely the case. But Mechalak, big-ish, but perhaps not as big as they might be. And be given the backing of the Fiat Group, which, as I say, is multi-billion company. Maybe that could take them on to the next level. Be interested to watch. Not this year, probably not next year, but maybe by the time Balmer rolls around again next time, maybe then we'll start to see exactly what it is that Fire have got planned for Mechalak. Power Plus Group USA have just joined us. Good morning to you, Power Plus Group USA. I'm assuming they are in the USA. Whereabouts are you, fellas and ladies? Whichever, or anything between. You have to be careful these days. Whereabouts are you in the USA? Wherever it is, kind of wish I was there with you. Let me just put Dan Cullen's points down. There's DC, 3 points. There we are. Dan Cullen says, "I saw a picture of one recently. I'm in the cab of a machine waiting for lorry number 8, and it is only, where is it? 10:18. Well done, Dan. Keep the productivity going, would you? Time to start the show proper." Right, bit of a preamble on this one, because I'd like you to understand. Well, I mean, there are a couple of our previous guests involved in all of this. So, on the morning of Sunday the 20th, no, let me do that again. On the morning of Sunday the 2nd of March, a water tower and 4 72-metre tall chimneys came crashing down to the ground in a controlled explosive demolition event in Sheffield. The blast was a huge success that made the news headlines. You may well have seen this on the news, actually. But the story of that blast started more than 8 months before. And it's a story that highlights the collaborative nature of the modern demolition industry. C&D Consultants were appointed project manager and principal designer back in June 2024 by Andy McGee of McGee Holdings, man with phenomenal background in demolition industry himself. C&D was awarded, or was basically made responsible for procurement. They appointed Metropolitan Demolition as the demolition contractor for the removal of the water tower and the chimneys. Metropolitan, under the advice of C&D, then appointed PDC, our friend Cormac McLean, and SES to take care of the blast. All of that is a preamble to say big bang incoming that looks like this.
Fire now.
Yeah, cracking film by the folks at Sky Revolutions. If you'd like to know the full story of that, you can go and find out all about it over on Demolition News right now. I think it's our lead story this morning. Billy Joe Sanford just joined us over on Instagram. Good morning to you, my friend. How you doing? Roman Jelensky has just joined us as well. And Ollie Duran. Loads of people over on Instagram this morning. We'll be right back after this. We're going mining just after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Now, just a happy coincidence as far as I'm concerned, that today's morning monologue is talking about women or the lack thereof within the industry. This video kind of counters that, because there are a few women in it, but they are certainly in this country the exception rather than the rule. But this is a good film. Enjoy it.
It doesn't seem like 20 years. It only seems like not long ago I was here, because I can probably tell you where I was on the first day that we started digging coal and what we were doing and where we used to go. Working here makes me feel proud.
My name's Gemma Kemp. I'm one of the descendants of the traditional owners that Curra North are based on, so of the Gungaloo people. And I'm out here as a operator, a trainer assessor, a crew safety rep, and also now stepped into the role of the RAT working group. I've been out here 8 years now, so built a lot of great relationships, from the management side to the supervisors to the workers on the ground.
I'm Darren Parker, Project Manager at Thiess Curra North, better known as Butch. Contract mining is performance, and when we are performing at our best, there's probably no better organisation to be involved with at Thiess at Curra North. Our testament is the 20-year history that we've had here. Very proud of the operation, very proud of the team that's putting the work in as well.
My name is Emma Richards. I'm an operator here at Curra North, working for Thiess. First started with Thiess Mining back in July 2017. Fast forward 7 years, I'm still here. Every day I've got a different role. Like, one day I could be on a truck, one day I could be in a water car. I've changed as a person, I've gained more confidence. It's amazing having that achievement of 20 years, and I hope to be out here for another 20 years.
There's a lot of good people that I've become friends with over the years. I work as a safety admin officer. I've been at Curra nearly 15 years.
What can I say? I bleed blue. I'm Terry Kerr, Production Efficiency Coordinator at Thiess Curra North. I've been here for approximately 14 years. Obviously driving machines originally. When I turned to site, was in the control dispatch office for several years until I'm in my current position. I wouldn't be where I am in life today in my position without Thiess.
I can remember myself and another guy were dropped off here, and there's about 10 acres of cleared ground with one tree. 20 years I've been here. Thiess put me through an adult apprenticeship.
I'm straight out of school, so this is my first sort of industry job. Everything's bigger than I thought it would be. It's cool to see. I've worked at Thiess Curra North for 10 months. At the end of January I started my apprenticeship, and yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
The lifestyle's like you with the family here for 7 days, and then you're with the family at home for 7 days. So you kind of do build that family relationship with the people at work. Everybody on crew just works so well together, especially when, everybody's out here to do the same job. We create that culture.
Look, I think it's a great achievement, 20 years in one organisation to be involved here at this mine site. I think that's an absolute credit to Thiess as an organisation. We're not just a company that's coming here to mine coal. We do want to be a part and involved in the community. And we've got a fair percentage of our workforce that also live in the community as well. So sponsorship, working with the schools and the communities, I think it's important as an organisation that we should be involved in the community as well.
When I first come here, we had little scrapers and a couple of little graders and no dump trucks and none. And I'd never seen this big mining gear before in my life, and when it turned up I was in awe of it, and I still am. And yeah, it changed as we were going along, and it was a change that I'll never ever forget.
Great film. Dan Cullen says, "Well, that's some kit," and he also says, "I'd love to go see a mine, even if it's with the last breath I take." Well, let's hope it's not that drastic. But he's also on the subject of our question of the day: what have you lost? And I've got one that compares with this. Question of the day: I lost my wallet and phone on site once, couldn't find them, and was out of credit at the time. Came back to work the next morning, and there they were, sitting between the track and the slew ring. Oddly enough, we bought, I think it was probably our second or our third GoPro, and we were going out to film a Cabelco hybrid excavator, and one of the shots that Fred wanted to get was looking down the boom. So we had a magnetic mount, stuck it to the side of the boom, working away, and we were filming elsewhere. When we came back, gone. Just gone. No idea where it was. So we assumed, 400 quid down this morning, we've lost that. Anyway, the excavator operator carried on working, and he was doing his thing. All of a sudden, he's back, and there it is. He'd run it over 3 or 4 times, not a mark on it. Not a mark on it. Gary Muirhead says, we've got a young lad who's looking into moving to Australia to work, and I've told him, definitely go for it and get out of this country. I don't blame you at all. My nephew, I actually mentioned this on the WhatsApp group last night. My nephew, he's in Brisbane at the moment. He went to Sydney, been offered a job there, got there, and one reason or another, that job had fallen through. So he's decided to go and have a bit of a nosy around Australia. But the family have spoken to him, and no intention of coming back. He's battening down the hatches at the moment because they've got a cyclone coming his way, but no intention of coming back whatsoever. I think once he's seen what the other side of the world offers, why on earth would you come back? My apologies. Had a hot cross bun for breakfast this morning. Now, here's a question I was asked this morning. As a lady who worked with us on ADT, start a new job, but wasn't allowed on site as on a red card. Not sure if that's a question, but keep it coming. A question: I lost my phone on the first day of this job and found it an hour later in the peat, and it's still working. That's one of the joys of peat, of course. I mean, you could basically drop it from a great height onto peat, and there won't be a mark on it. Finding it, not quite so straightforward. Yeah, well, keep me informed on that young lady that's working with you there, Dan, because we are talking about women a bit later in the show. We're going to be back with Caterpillar and their scheduled oil sampling in just a moment.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Yeah, I've been following the story of Caterpillar's scheduled oil sampling from way back when, 30 plus years ago, when I did the PR for Leverton out of their facility in Windsor, the old south of England, mainly the south of England Caterpillar dealer. Scheduled oil sampling looks like this.
Oh. Looks like this job might fall behind. Stuck looking for answers, trying to get your equipment and your schedule back on track? That's a construction nightmare. Except this customer has a CAT CBA on that machine with SOS fluid analysis, so we were able to detect dirt in the fluids. Caught the problem, cracked intake tube, before it led to something much bigger, like total engine failure. So this note, not as bad as it might have been. And that cracked tube, replaced with a CAT part, and fast. Because if for some reason we can't get it to you as soon as the second business day, you get CAT credit. Without a CBA, you're rolling the dice on equipment performance, repair costs, downtime. With the CBA, well, that's peace of mind. Call your CAT dealer. Ask them about a CBA with SOS.
I wonder if they went to Central Casting and said, we'd like a butch-looking man, ideally one with a 70s style porn moustache. I wonder if that was a thing. Now, clarity on the story that Dan was telling us. Yeah, she's a better operator than most people. She told today that card has to be blue for insurance reasons. Is this actually a thing? I'm guessing it probably is a thing, but I'm inclined to believe your second point. Must have a blue card for their insurance. I feel this is bullshit. It's probably an all-man site. Yeah, you don't fit, and therefore we found a reason for you to not be here. Listen, I could be speaking out of turn. Thankfully, the people that are running the site probably don't know who the hell I am, but I do wonder if that's the case. We mentioned Fiat Group earlier in the show, who obviously own Dynapack, but they also own Bomag. We're back with Bomag in just a moment. Those of you of a certain age might remember the movie A Fish Called Wanda. Do you remember that? John Cleese, Jamie Lee Curtis, Kevin Kline, Michael Palin. There's a bit in it where Michael Caine, having discovered that Wanda, the titular fish, has been killed by Kevin Kline, his character Otto, he decides to run him down. What does he choose to run him over with? A roller, the slowest moving piece of equipment on God's green earth. But he still manages to do it. Wouldn't have thought that rollers really need emergency braking, but apparently they do. And this is how it works. Dan Cullen asked, how many companies are under the Fiat Group now? I don't actually know the full answer. They have a company called Charlotte Manutention. They've got Fiat Cleantech, Secmare. They've got Dynapack. They've got Bomag. And now, of course, they have Mechalac. There's also a mixing plant division, but I can't see the name of the mixing plant division, but Fiat, big old lump of company. Our question of the day, obviously, is losing things and then rediscovering them. Chris Ford, I'm losing things on a regular basis. I can put a spanner down, then can't find it. I have two phones, always leaving one of them somewhere. I've put it down to old age and poverty. Well, poverty will get worse if you keep losing stuff because you then have to replace it. So, but I know what you mean. Gary Muirhead, now this is far more important than any of the bollocks that I'm talking about today. Bearing in mind we're talking about a daughter here. Stick around for the end of the show because we are talking about women. I'm really looking forward to finishing work today, heading home with the weekend off to celebrate my daughter Gemma's 21st birthday. Many happy returns, Gemma. Family meal at our favourite Italian restaurant. Is there a better way to spend your weekend? The birthday with your offspring. It's what I did last Sunday. I was with all my kids and the grandchildren as well. Fine time had by all. And there's Dan the man saying, wishing your daughter a very happy birthday. Well, the same from all of us. In actual fact, I haven't used this for a while. I'm assuming it's still here. Let's have a look. Do we still? Yes, we have it. This is for Gemma. Happy birthday, Gemma. Gemma Muirhead, 21. Doesn't look a day over 20 3/4. Happy birthday. Chris Ford, are we still guessing the mystery machine? No, we're not. The lorries aren't playing ball again, so it's sound and no vision. Bit like the wife. Oh, listen, you're on your own there, my friend. But yes, Dan Cullen got the right answer on that. That's another thing for operators to play on phones now as Roller doing the driving, don't you think? Not sure. Chris Ford, happy birthday, Gary. Getting old is just a number. But having a 21-year-old daughter does, well, bearing in mind I've got a daughter of 33. Yeah, it does make you stop and think, doesn't it? I've thrown myself completely off here. Let me get back to where I need to be. Oh yeah, I know what we're doing. We're taking a look at one of the surprise packages for Balmer right after this.
Think you can stop what we do? I doubt it. We've got the energy, we'll tell you all about it.
Still enjoying that tune. There is going to be a new mini excavator at Balmer, and it's Chinese. It's green in colour, and it looks like this. Looking forward to seeing that, not least so that I can find out how you actually pronounce. Is it Lovell? Lovol? I honestly don't know, but I'll report back, because just as soon as I've spoken to somebody who hopefully speaks English, we'll see. Thank you to MB Crusher, as I say this every morning, but thank you for sponsoring our Mission to Munich segment. This is MB Crusher. Go see them if you're going to Germany.
Hey, turn this TV off. Ain't want my type activity, but don't you get involved. Hey, what? How many shit I seen? Seen them all. Take a risk or take a trip. You know I'm tripping for my dog.
Dan Cullen. Now, here's the thing. Dan Cullen says, I often lose things and even looking, never find it till I walk away, come back, and there it was right under my nose. There's two sides to that. I've had that, and I take it. But have you noticed, like, if you can't find your car keys, the layout of my house is you walk in the front door, there's a hallway, and there's a flight of stairs. And I walk in the door and I throw my keys onto the stairs. They're about 3 steps up. That's where they always, always, always are. Except when they're not. And when they're not, I go and look at the 3rd step, find that they're not there, and go in here into the office, go into the front room, go into the kitchen, go into the bedroom, and then I go back to that 3rd step as if I could have missed them. And then I'll go and look somewhere else, and I'll come back, and I'll still expect to find them on the 3rd step, even though I know I've proven to myself they're not there. I'll still keep looking. Gary says, "Thank you, everyone. She's going to London for a week's holiday. Hope she's got plenty of money to spend some time with her boyfriend. Good luck to Gemma. Tell her to try the pie and mash while she's here." No, she's probably way too good for that. No matter how hard I looked, couldn't find it. Walk away a few minutes, come back, and there it is. Spanner, screwdriver, even a grease gun. You lost a grease gun. That takes some doing. Having said that, I am the person, and this is absolutely true. I can't believe this has just come to me. When I passed my driving test, I went out and I bought myself, I've mentioned this before, I went out and bought myself a Volkswagen Beetle, navy blue Beetle, because my dad had one when I was a kid. I went out and bought it, delighted with it, made up with it and everything else. So the first actual trip that I did, I took my girlfriend, who is now my wife, into London, parked in a car park not a million miles away from the London Palladium, just off the back of Regent Street and stuff like that. Parked up, we went out and we had a meal and we had a fine old time. Came out, couldn't remember what car park I was in. I'd lost an entire car. And to make matters worse, I found a car park and thought, well, this is the closest one. This must be it. Did every floor. My car was not in there. It was in the car park next door. So not only did I lose a car, I lost a car park too. Yeah, it takes some doing. Well, the worst one is when someone says, "Where did you have them last?" Fucking knew that. I'd know exactly where they bloody were. Yeah, absolutely. Well done, Gary. Right, okay. It is about that time. That's going to be it for the main part of this morning show, and for this week as well. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, do please stay safe. Look after yourself this weekend. Look after your family, your friends, and your colleagues as well. Hope to see you again on Monday. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I'm getting my shout in about International Women's Day early. It's tomorrow, but I'm doing it today for reasons that will become clear. Back after this. Tomorrow is International Women's Day, but I'm not going to mark it. Not because I'm some knuckle-dragging misogynist. In fact, quite the opposite. I am the son of a woman. I'm the husband to a woman. I'm the father of 2 women. Let me be clear, a woman gave me life. Another woman saved my life, and 2 other women give me a reason to live. So as far as I'm concerned, it should be International Women's Day every single day. However, I work in the field of demolition and construction, an industry that still suffers from a huge gender imbalance. And those women that are brave enough to work in the sector are often subjected to verbal abuse or much, much worse. And yet tomorrow, my social media feed will be flooded with posts from demolition and construction companies celebrating the handful of women on their payroll. They'll post glossy photos, tell inspirational stories, and make vague promises about change. They'll congratulate themselves for hiring a female apprentice or promoting one woman to a leadership role and pretend that this single act balances out decades of exclusion and ongoing neglect. But on Monday, those women will return to the same work sites where they're outnumbered 50 to 1. They'll face the same uphill battles for respect, for opportunities, and for a workplace that doesn't feel like an all-boys club that at best tolerates their presence. The hypocrisy is staggering. Where are those companies and their public displays of solidarity on the 4th of March, on May the 17th, on September the 3rd? Where are they when a woman reports harassment? Where are they when a woman applies for a job and gets turned down because she won't fit in? Where are they when a talented woman who has worked twice as hard as her male counterparts is passed over for promotion because management feels more comfortable with someone who looks like them? It's now 2025. Systemic change is not just necessary, it is decades overdue. The problem is not that women don't want to work in demolition and construction. The problem is that demolition and construction have not done enough to make space for them. The industry holds itself up, the industry holds itself up as a brotherhood, a fraternity of hard work, skill, and resilience. But what happens when a sister wants to join that brotherhood? She's questioned, she's doubted, she's tested in ways that her male counterparts are not. She's expected to prove again and again and again that she belongs. And so many don't even try. And frankly, who can blame them? This is not a women's issue. This is an industry issue. It's a men's issue. The statistics don't lie. The number of women in hands-on roles in demolition and construction remains pitifully low. And the women who do make it often have to endure casual sexism, whispered jokes, or outright hostility from colleagues who see them as an inconvenience, a novelty, or a threat. We're told the industry is changing, that it's modernising, that it's inclusive. But let's not kid ourselves. A handful of diversity initiatives and a few well-timed social media posts and an annual breakfast event on March the 8th do not undo decades of exclusion. They don't erase stories of women who have walked away disillusioned and exhausted by the constant battle just to be treated as equals. We can talk about role models. We can highlight the success stories of the few women that have defied the odds. But the truth is, the odds should not be stacked against them in the first place. So let's skip the hashtags. Let's skip the staged photographs, the press releases. Let's skip the carefully curated stories of the one woman on the team presented as proof that change has arrived. Instead, let's talk about why in 2025 we are still having this conversation. Let's talk about why so many women... No, let me do that again. Let's talk about why so many companies can find a woman for a photo shoot, but they can't find one for a promotion. Let's talk about why we're willing to celebrate women one day a year, but unwilling to challenge the culture that keeps them on the margins for the other 364 days. Let's talk about the excuses that get rolled out every time the industry's gender imbalance is brought up. Women don't apply. The work is too physically demanding. It's just the way things have always been. Each one is a convenient way to shift blame away from the real issue. The industry has never truly wanted women. It's tolerated them at best and resisted them at worst. Now let's talk about what real change looks like. And what it looks like has nothing to do with token gestures of filling a few inconsequential jobs with women just to fill a quota. I'm not suggesting that companies hire women merely to tick a box. They should hire the best candidates for their job. But they should also broaden their minds and consider that the best candidate might actually be a woman. Real change means creating workplaces where women don't feel like outsiders, where a pair of X chromosomes are not seen as an impediment. It means breaking the cycle of exclusion by actively recruiting, training, and promoting women, not just one or two, but in numbers that actually move the needle. It means addressing harassment with real consequences, not just empty policies that no one enforces. It means ensuring that every woman who steps onto a construction or demolition site is given the same opportunities, the same respect, and the same chance to thrive as any man. Because if we're still having this conversation in another 5 years, if we're still recycling the same token gestures in 2030, then we will have proved that we never really meant any of it. And that, more than anything, do that final bit again, and that, more than anything, would be the real failure. Just as a small aside, I noticed International Women's Day is tomorrow. The social media virtue signalling has already begun, presumably because it falls inconveniently on a Saturday. My LinkedIn this morning, oh, women this, women that. Where were you yesterday? Where will you be on Monday? Obviously, this is a fantastic opportunity to talk about Betty, the only woman in the all-male office, or Claire, the lone female digger driver. But where will you be on Monday or Tuesday? Where will your support for the female of the species be then? That's my thought for the day. And that is why I will not be marking International Women's Day, because I think it's actually hypocrisy writ large. Here we go. Let's have a look. What have we got here? David Phillips. David Phillips. The mighty David Phillips says, pronounce Lovol. Emphasis on the last syllable. I'm enjoying the show, as always. Thank you, David. David is a man that I admire enormously. I've said this before. You imagine kicking a football around in the park and you get a free kick with your mates and David Beckham's watching you take it. Well, that's how I feel doing this show, knowing that David Phillips is lurking in the background. But good morning, David. Thank you for joining us. Dan says, guys, Laurieland, have a fantastic day. Stay safe. Tell your loved ones you love them. Give them a hug. Take it easy. Have a relaxing weekend. See you on the flip side on Monday. Looking forward to it, Dan. Industry does F all to get these women into the industry, and this is an issue on all sides. I totally agree. Totally agree. And when they do get on site, they must look sexy and already in a new PPE to put on social media. Look at us. We hired a woman. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Is there a more telling photograph than that? Clean, pristine PPE tells so many stories. The number of times I've been on site where they've had a local dignitary or an MP pitch up, and you can tell them a mile off because they've got a pair of site boots on that have literally not got a speck of dust on them. They've never done this before, and they stand out like a sore thumb. And then you turn on LinkedIn or Facebook, and there we are, X construction company or X demolition company. We're with the ladies. Come on, sisters. We're all united as one for International Women's Day. And there is that token woman in her brand spanking new PPE, fresh out the wrapper. You can still see the creases from where it was folded up. Yeah, you're fooling nobody, people. You're fooling nobody. Just the words in the song. This is a man's world, but we would be anywhere without a woman in the world. Yeah, James Brown. I didn't think we'd ever get to play James Brown here. Should have had him on standby. I wish I'd known that was coming. They also say if you want a job doing and finishing, get a woman. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. But like management, when it appears on site, the PPE blinds you. Yes, it does, doesn't it? In actual fact, I mean, that takes us back to that. Never know if it's Thiess Mining, but the ladies there, they were actually the real deal. They were the real deal. They actually had dirty PPE on. They've actually done a job of work. They haven't just been brought out for the photo shoot. So yeah, fair play to them. Jim Turner says you won't get change until our industry teams up with UK education, goes into schools to show kids what jobs are out there. I agree with that. Would that change the industry attitude, though? even if you were to instigate, a very broad and very comprehensive program of going into schools, speaking to young boys and young girls, and encouraging some of those ladies into the industry, when they pitch up on site, what do they get? Will they be treated as equals? Will they be treated as a novelty? Will they be treated as a threat? Or will they be treated as the subject of objectification? As it stands at the moment, I think it would be all of the latter. I think the most sites, and I realise that's a sweeping generalisation, but most sites are not yet prepared for women. I've mentioned it before, and I will continue to mention it until it stops being a thing. I have spoken to a number, and I'm not talking one or two, I'm talking about dozens. Female operators, female operatives, working on site, and the crap that they have to put up with would blow your mind. There's a female-only toilet, and they arrive, go and do their morning ablutions, and they find there's a sex toy waiting for them in the toilet. You wouldn't do that to a bloke, because if you did that to a bloke, you'd probably get a thick ear. They've got another sex toy stuck to the cab of their machine. You wouldn't do that to a bloke, because again, you'd get a thick lip. But apparently that's absolutely fine. And what makes it worse is the fact that, most of these sites, we're not talking about one man and one woman. The chances are there's a woman or a couple of women and dozens of men. And those dozens of men have allowed that to happen. Rather than having a quiet word with their hand around his throat, why are you sticking a dildo to the window of this woman's cab? They stand around and allow it to happen. And the site management allow it to happen. And even if that does escalate to becoming an actual complaint, it becomes a girl's word against boy's word, woman's word against man's word. Well, just a bit of banter. Just, no harm was done. No harm was done. It's just a bit of banter. And then we go back to doing exactly the same thing again. It's 2025. I was thinking about this the other day. I'll put this up because I think it's a valid point. These are someone's daughter. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, let's be absolutely honest. I mean, I'm a fairly peaceable, but fairly peaceable. I'm not a particularly big guy. I'm 5'10", knocking on in years. If somebody treated my daughter like that, yeah, they're going to have a case to answer. They really are. And yet, in this industry, it's par for the course. And you'd like to think, I'd like to think, that things have improved. But think about this. That old staple of British TV comedy? Benny Hill days, back in the day. Young lady walks past a building site and she gets wolf whistled. It's a trope. I don't know whether it ever actually happened, but it was a trope. Hey, you go away, love. We all know what it's like. As a society, we decided that was not a good thing, and rightly so. You should be able to walk down the street without being wolf whistled and objectified, and so on down the line. Here we are 40, 50 years post Benny Hill, and we now have women unsolicited receiving dick pics on their mobile phones. That progress? I'm not saying either is acceptable, but I would imagine if you took a lady to one side and said, the occasional wolf whistle as you're going down the high street, or receiving an unsolicited dick pic on your mobile phone, she'd probably take the wolf whistle. She'd probably take the wolf whistle over being slipped something in her drink while she's out for an evening with her mates. So all of this talk about the progress we've made, all this talk about how enlightened we are as an industry, how enlightened we are as a society, I'm calling bullshit on it, basically. It is something we like to tell ourselves, and we tell ourselves it's exactly the same as Mental Health Day. Oh, look, we've celebrated the day. We are clearly aware of mental health being an issue. But the 364 other days of the year, we're going to make you work more hours away from your friends and family than is humanly possible, and we'll be genuinely surprised when you break. And I guarantee, I don't know which. Well, I do know, because I watch these things. Whatever social media platform you are on today and tomorrow, wait for it. It's already started. LinkedIn itself, if you go to LinkedIn now, it actually offers you an opportunity to tell a story about a woman that has inspired you in a career. Where was that question yesterday? Where will that question be on Sunday? Nowhere to be seen. It's a thing that it's a, what was that George Michael line? Charity is a coat you wear twice a year. That's what we do. Once a year, we put on our coat and say, "Oh, women, aren't they marvelous?" But they're marvelous all the time. Yeah. And once a year, we put on the colourful coat and say, "Oh, gays and transgender people, they're people like us." What about the rest of the time? What about Black History Month? Mental health awareness. What we've actually done is we've created a bunch of days for us to virtue signal. That's all we do. We just, there we are. We've done a thing. That's us covered for another year. We've said that we're right behind the sisterhood. Are you? Are you really? Do you believe that? Dan Carl says, completely agree. Pure BS for one day. And these women, ladies, have families, kids. Can you imagine how they feel when they get home? Unfortunately, can't say anything as they don't want the burden. Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to know what response they would get. If you are one of those women who turns up to find something unpleasant stuck to the cab of your machine, and you go to management and say, look what I've... Are you getting a fair hearing? Are you told to, just banter? Is that escalated? Does that go above site management? Being completely kind here, being positive. I know we've got a situation now where you can buy female friendly PPE that better fits their physique. We have female only toilets on some, if not all, sites now, and that's fine. That's a step forward. But those that are in charge of a site, so site manager, project manager, and so on down the line, site supervisors, have they received any kind of guidance or training on how to deal with complaints that relate specifically to sexism, or for that matter, for racism? Have they received that training? Have they received that guidance? Is there a protocol in place? If a woman goes to complain to a manager and says, I'm getting an enormous amount of grief from that guy over there. He's an absolute misogynist and I'm suffering sexual harassment. What does the guidebook tell him to do? Does he have a word? Does he report it up the line? Or does he gloss it over? Some man's wife, girlfriend, someone's daughter, someone's sister, niece. It's unbelievable. Companies don't make sites, this industry, more efficient towards women. Some of these women are better than workers too. Yeah. I every time I talk about this subject, I'm reminded of the thing that Tristan Mays says a lot. And that thing is, I don't just want to hire women. I want to hire the best person for the job. I don't believe that the industry as a whole currently believes that a woman could be the best candidate for the job. I've said it, I can't even remember what we were talking about, but I said this weeks and weeks and weeks ago. We have a tendency to recruit those that look like us. So if you're in an all-white, all-male office, the chances are you will be drawn towards a candidate that looks like you and that sounds like you and that he's packing the same undercarriage as you. That's the cycle we need to break. And again, I also wonder, I wonder if there is a misconception with women as well. I remember back in the days when I was working in an office, these pre-Enlightenment days, and you'd always get the same thing. They've hired a woman for that role. Give it a couple of years, she'll get knocked up, and then she'll bugger off, and we'll never see her again. Has that gone away? Has that gone away? Are those responsible for recruitment, are they thinking, well, if we hire her, she might go and get married and get pregnant, and then we've lost her? Are they thinking, well, she's quite attractive. Chances are she's going to get some grief from the lads on site. Is it worth the grief? No. Let's hire the ugly bloke instead. Is that going on? I reckon it probably is. I reckon it is. Better than some men with years of experience. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And he says, look at Lands. I think he means Lana. Listen, I'm not saying this is a British thing, although it was interesting with the Thiess Mining thing. Obviously, down under, land down under, lots of women. You go to Japan, lots and lots of women. I'm quite surprised whenever I go to the States. Not only are there quite a few, not as many as it could be, but I think there are quite a few women working within the industry, and quite a lot of women that run American demolition and construction companies. I don't know whether that's because they inherited it, or whether that's just been a push from them themselves. But there's quite a lot here, not so much. Jim Turner says this is all down to getting the individuals involved, nothing to do with science or industry. Blokes would get the same stick in a factory full of women. Stop blaming the industry. It's individuals that are to blame. I don't think it's the same though. Listen, I've worked several times in all-female offices. But one of my first jobs in journalism, I was working in an all-female office, and yeah, I mean, women can be rude and crude with the best of them. I'm not threatened by that. I realise this is going in, taking things to the absolute extreme. But even if a woman was giving me all of the the rudest and the crudest comments, at no point am I fearing for my safety. At no point am I thinking this could end up in a rape situation or a groping situation. If you're a woman on an all-male site, I think that is an ever-present consideration. And I realise that flies against everything that I've said about the need for equality, but I do think I have 2 daughters. I have 2 sons. If my sons go off on holiday halfway around the world, drink too much, probably dabble with things that they're not supposed to. I'm a father, of course I'm worried about them, but not to the same degree as I would be with my 2 girls. Because there is, both of my sons are big enough and ugly enough to look after themselves. We always refer to my youngest daughter as small and vulnerable. She's 5'1", and she is pretty vulnerable. There's the difference. Dan says Laura Edwards, she's one of the best operators I've seen around, and she's had some issues. Had to walk 30 to get to a woman toilet. I don't know what 30 is. They had portaloos, but none dedicated to women. I mean, Jesus Christ! In this day and age, you're ordering toilets. Just put a woman's one on there, and it goes deeper. I mean, obviously she's very much working on site and does so very, very well. Haven't spoken to her a while. He was soaked about 30 minutes, by the way. Had to walk 30 minutes to take a leak. Obviously ridiculous. But what about the other people? You know, what about if you have a female health and safety executive person, representative, inspector come along to your site? Surely you'd be required to have a female only toilet, would you not? What if I don't know, the asbestos sampling person turns out to be female? She'll need a toilet. What? Why? It's 2025. How on God's green earth are we still having this conversation? Office is very different to a site or a factory. Yeah, it may be. It may be. I mean, I hop on and off sites. I hop in and out of factories. I've spent a lot of time in factories, in offices, and yes, you maybe you're right, but despite the fact that it flies in the face of everything I've said about gender equality, I still believe 99.9% of men could handle being subjected to rude, crude, or even sexist behaviour. Whereas I'm not sure the figure would be so high for women on the receiving end of the same thing. Yes, Jim, to an extent, some individuals are to blame, but it's the industry's fault, as construction was always known as a man's industry. And seeing a woman, not sure where that was going, but yeah. And one of the things that while I was writing that, one of the things that makes me smile about this is there was always this perception that women didn't belong on construction sites because it was physically demanding. Think of the machine that you're sat in now, if you are sat in a machine. Yes, you are sat down for quite a long while, and it's demanding, don't get me wrong. But you've got servo controls that you can operate as Dan Cullen does with his fingertips. You've got a seat that supports every single bit of every bit of your body that's in contact with it. So your rear end, your lumbar region, your headrest. It's cooled in the summer. It's heated in the winter. You've got armrests to make sure you don't get too much strain there. The most physically demanding thing, aside from actually sitting there all day, is getting in a machine and getting out of a machine. A woman could do that. The steps, men are generally bigger than women. The steps are a bit of a reach. They're a bit of a reach for me. But once you're in that machine, does physical strength actually come into it at all? Don't think so. Don't think so. And why is it that, as I've already said, Thiess Mining, women behind the wheels of big dump trucks? When I was in Japan, I think I did see one male operator, but I saw almost exclusively female operators. So they can do it in America, they can do it in Australia, they can do it in New Zealand, they can do it in Japan. What's up with us? Should it be International Women's Day, or would we be better off saying what it really is? It should be International Men Get Your Head Out Your Arse Day. I'm asking for a friend. I'm asking for a female friend. By saying construction has always been a man's world, you are restricting the change you're complaining about. I don't think you can change the past, and it has traditionally been a man's world. But then, by the same token, if you were to speak to certainly my dad, and even more specifically my granddad, woman's place was in the home. She fixed the meals and she took care of the kids while the old man was out earning a crust and popping down the pub on the way home with the lads. We now know that is not necessarily the case. Women do go out to work. There are career women out there. There are women that are quite happy to either not have children or have children, hand them off to a babysitter while they go out and earn a crust. And bearing in mind the cost of living these days, the ability to earn a crust is kind of vital, because most men can't afford to keep the roof over their head on their own. So we've managed to break a good number of stereotypes. We've managed to break a lot of cycles, but we still haven't broken this one in 2025. And regardless of all that goes on social media today and tomorrow, I bet we're having the same conversation next year. And don't forget, it was only a couple of months ago we reported on the fact that there was a decline in the number of female apprentices actually taking up roles. It's not like, well, it's improving. It's improving. It's slow, but it's improving. It's not. It's not. I think we've hit about 14% female representation in the UK. I think it's about 11% in America. That means there's an awful long way to go. An awful long way to go. And I've been doing this for a long time. I've not seen anything that has really shifted that needle at all. Anyway, Dan is going to load some wagons, which I think is a perfectly good way to end the show. So everybody, go and have a good day. Celebrate International Women's Day tomorrow as best you can. Don't be suckered into the hashtag nonsense, because it is nonsense. You know, unless a demolition or construction company or organisation can stand up and say, roughly half of our workforce is female, you've not really got much of a box to stand on, I don't think. Anyway, people, that will do me for now. I've ranted plenty long enough. I'm going to go and make my wife, the woman of this house, a cup of tea, because, you know, I'm enlightened like that. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday for yet more of the same. Till then, have a good one. All the best.